Another day, another new development that EVs are not doing so hot right now.
Yeah, our head of news, Miles, was talking about how whether I wrote the same story over again, but this time use GM. Well, in this case, GM now following Ford in the sense that they are actually pushing back production of the EV Silverado and also the Sierra EV that they're going to make at this plant in Orion, Michigan. They said that they want to, quote, better manage capital investment with aligning with evolving EV demand. That's sort of the big thing. They're evolving EV demand, potentially what Ford is doing when they cut a production shift for the Lightning. They're not seeing that demand there potentially. Maybe they're kind of like cutting supply, rethinking pricing, and maybe sort of changing the strategy. Maybe GM is seeing that as a harbinger of what they might see in the future. They're not going to stop making the truck. They're actually making it right now in a different plant, but they're not going to expand as much as they thought they were going to.
It seems like being careful with where they're investing at a time where they do have the strikes ongoing too, right? Like just as far as GM only has so much money to go around, like all companies only have so much money to go around. And when you have less workers literally working for you and you're trying to think about how to be more efficient, maybe EVs just isn't the space of efficiency for these car companies right now, especially the car companies that have been creating traditional vehicles for so long, right? It's not like they're Tesla and they're cutting back on EV production.
Right.
So they're cutting back on all car production. They're still producing other cars. They're just saying, we got to be a little bit slower with the EV thing. And as Pras just said, reminds us of our Yahoo Finance survey, right? Mm-hmm. Where people weren't that willing to move over to EVs. We were all pretty surprised by those numbers.
Yeah, the demand picture, I think, is very interesting. I mean, you're seeing on your screen now, 57% said they're not likely to purchase an EV in our survey, compared to 11% that were unsure and 31% that were likely. And some of the big concerns here revolves around pricing, revolves around infrastructure, driving range, another big factor there. And it makes me wonder if we overestimated how many people would be interested in EVs and, the tax credits we can get with those cars. I think that all is going to factor into it because right now with interest rates so high, a lot of volatility in the economy right now, spending a ton of money on an EV just doesn't seem top of mind for consumers.
Yeah, two big things you guys mentioned. So interest rates, high prices, those are sort of weighing on demand. If you get these cars for cheaper, they'd probably sell better, right? Mm-hmm. But a big thing I think is there's a bifurcation between your Model Ys and smaller EVs and your big pickup trucks. They're more money, huge batteries. They need to be filled up with power probably more frequently, and our charging infrastructure just isn't there yet. So I think there's more concern about that, whereas a Model Y can go 300, 320 miles. You don't have to worry about charging.
So I was going to ask that. I mean, traditionally, like we think of pickup trucks as kind of gas guzzlers, right? Or is it the same for EVs? They take up a lot more battery, and therefore, like range anxiety people, you don't want to get a pickup EV. You'd rather get a Model Y.
I mean, for instance, the Model Y probably has about a battery that's probably half the size of a F-150 extended range battery.
Wow.
And they probably get around similar range, but the Model Y will get a bit more, right, depending on the situation. So you're basically, your efficiency is half, meaning you got to charge more. It's going to take more. It's going to cost more to fill up the battery. So it might be the fact that just that use case of an EV pickup, not going to happen, or not happening right now.
Interesting to see how we've shifted over the last couple of years on maybe how big that potential TAM is for EVs, right? It seemed like you go back a couple of years and it felt like it was as big as anything, right? Just an impossibly big TAM.